Throws me off there a bit. The first song we're going to do is the Prelude. It's the only non-Joe Hill song we're going to sing today, because it's about Joe Hill. So this is after he, and this is probably going to be the most familiar song for some of you. You'll get it after the first three verses if you don't know it. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. In Salt Lake, Joe, by God, says I, him standing by my head. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. You should get it by now. Try. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe, I didn't die. Says Joe, I didn't die. And standing there as big as life and smiling with his eyes, says Joe, what they forgot to kill went on to organize, went on to organize. Joe Hill ain't dead, he says to me. Joe Hill ain't never died. Where working folks are out on strike, Joe Hill is at their side. Joe Hill is at their side. From San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers strike and organize, it's there you'll find Joe Hill. It's there you'll find Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. And hopefully you'll know a little bit more about Joe Hill by the end, if you don't already. Okay. Standing on Treaty 6 territory, we recognize and acknowledge that this land on which we stand has been the gathering place for millennia of many Indigenous peoples. As treaty people, we acknowledge, honor, and respect the history, wisdom, knowledge, languages, ceremonies, and culture of the First Nations of this continent, of the Métis peoples, of the Inuit, of all who gathered in this place, Amiskwaci. We learned from the first peoples of our connection to the land, of our responsibility to protect and respect Mother Earth. We honor and respect and mourn the ancestors and children buried here, the missing and murdered Indigenous women and men. We acknowledge our need for collective healing. We remember that we are all treaty people and that we are all responsible for each other. So welcome to Westwood. Westwood is a welcoming space where we strive to embrace who and what we are, regardless of belief or how ourselves we currently conceive. Westwood is a challenging place where we individually and collectively trace a path that struggles to find truth. Westwood welcomes our elders, middles, muddles, and youths, and a rainbow of peoples and beliefs, theists, non-theists, atheists, paganists, agnostics, gnostics, cynics, and eccentrics. Westwood welcomes people regardless of race, color, class, creed, or breed, gender, ethnicity, unicity, elasticity, or neurodiversity. Westwood welcomes how you conceive your growing identity on the continuum of discovery, whichever pronouns you choose to use today or tomorrow, or the direction of your affections, or your color in the rainbow. Okay, I have some opening words from Joe Hill, and then I'll tell you a little bit about him before we start singing some of his songs. A pamphlet, no matter how good, is never read more than once. But a song is learned by heart and repeated over and over. I maintain that if a person can put a few cold, common sense facts into a song and dress them up in a cloak of humor to take the dryness off of them, he will succeed, or she will succeed, in reaching a great number of workers who are too unintelligent or too indifferent or to read a pamphlet or an editorial on economic science. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to be talking about today is, I was thinking, why am I singing these songs in the first place? Why do I love these songs so much? And when I first heard these songs of Joe Hill, it was just like, they just moved me in a way that I'm still trying to figure out. So the past couple of weeks, I've been thinking, why? Why do these songs make so much importance to me, or seem so important to me? I mean, I think one reason is always loved a good martyr story. And they've always been very popular. I mean, you go back in time, the book of the Maccabees, you have martyr stories. You also have them in the Acts of the Apostles and so on. This book, written in the 1500s, was a bestseller, Fox's Book of Martyrs. And you should see how tiny the print is. Just hundreds and hundreds of martyr stories. And they all follow the same pattern, basically. They're all basically the same story. I mean, you start with a good, corrupt trial where outrageous things happen, and sometimes the person gets to speak their truth, sometimes not. Sometimes they speak their truth as they're about to be executed. And that's an important part of a martyrology. You have to have an execution. So you have the trial, and then one of the interesting things that they changed, so I mean, arguably the Jesus story is one of the first martyr stories, except he's not happy as he goes to his execution in the Gospels, and usually the martyrs are joyful as they go. There's something that they realize that they are doing something greater than themselves, and usually they are singing a song. They're singing these ones. They are typically singing a psalm from the Bible that usually is an ironic comment on something that happened in the trial, and then of course you have the execution, and Joe Hill's story. I mean, you can see how it borders on mythology as it enters into those patterns. So I mean, he was in 1914 in January. There was a crime, hold up of a grocery store, and except nothing was robbed in the grocery store. And the person who was the former police commissioner and had a lot of enemies apparently was shot and killed in this. And so they were, drum up the usual suspects kind of thing. And so they arrested 12 people right away, all of them who had grievances against this former commissioner. But then somebody was shot that evening, and that was Joe Hill. And he went to a doctor, and the doctor phoned the police and said, "I've got your man." He even has a gun. They never found the gun. And the only account of a gun on Joe Hill was the doctor's account, which they've never been able to corroborate. And Joe Hill's story was that he was in an argument with another person over a woman. And one of the things that he pointed out is the bullet hole on the back of his shirt was 4 inches higher than where it should have been because his hands were up when he was shot. But that didn't matter. The first witness, the witnesses in the store, the grocery store, when they first saw Joe Hill, they said, "Oh no, that's not him at all." After some police coaching, they realized that this was definitely the person that they saw. And so the trial kind of, it was a major trial. And one of the big things, and this is a question that you still find in articles in the 1950s and the 1960s, 70s, and so on, is why didn't Joe Hill name the woman and name the person that he had the grief over? And I mean, and part of it is when you think about the world at that time, a person, when a month before or so before Joe Hill's execution in Utah, somebody was talking about the police and about how they perjured themselves on the stand and that they coach the witnesses and so on. And he was talking about how nobody can get a fair trial in Utah. And this guy took exception to that, went into his house, pulled out a gun and shot the guy 3 times dead, and got off on self-defense. Because, so I mean, that people were terrified in Utah at this time of speaking out. And so naming anybody would be putting those people in danger. And that's also kind of a consistent, think of all the places in the world right now where that's the case. And in history, how often that has been the case, where to name somebody will put them in danger. So at some point, I think it's pretty clear that Joe Hill decided, I'm going to change the narrative. And so instead of, I'm fighting, I'm not going to get a fair trial, I'm dying because I write songs. And I am the labor singer who is going to be executed. And and again, that's kind of that turn that you have. And I was thinking about this, about why martyr stories are so great, is because the person has absolute, unimaginable odds. There's no way they're going to win, but they change the narrative. And they do win in our minds when we hear these stories, and they change it. Yesterday was May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. So it was Star Wars Day. And I mean, Star Wars mythologizes this story over and over and over again, where, I mean, you see the Nuremberg rally over and over again with all of these stormtroopers and so on. And there's this raggle-taggle band of people who have the Force with them, and that's it. And they always triumph. And that's what the martyr stories always tell us, is that there is never a tragic ending. There's always this hope. There's always this flower. Okay, let's sing a song here. This, Nearer My Job to Thee. So as you, if you might go, hey, isn't it nearer my God to thee? Well, no. One of the things that Joe Hill was very good at is he would take songs that people were knew, and he would write different lyrics to them. And what was really convenient is the Salvation Army would often have a band, and they would be playing. And so the band would be playing on one side of the street, and the Wobblies would be, the IWW, that's what the organization that Joe Hill was part of, would be on the other side of the street singing his lyrics. Back in the early 1900s, I mean, unlike today at all, where employment was an issue, there were these organizations where that you would pay them and they would get you a job, supposedly. And often they would put you on like a boxcar of a train, and they were going to take you out to the job site, and then they dump you in the middle of nowhere, and that's where you were. They just there was no job there, and that's what this song is about. If you happen to know the song "Near to My God to Thee," you'll be able to sing this right away. But otherwise, it's not hard. Just a minute, I have to figure out which key I'm playing this in. Oh, there we go. Nearer, my job to thee, nearer with glee. 3 plunks for the office fee, but my fare is free. My train is running fast, I've got a job at last. Nearer, my job to thee, nearer to thee. Arrived where my job should be, nothing in sight I see, nothing but sand by G. Job went up a tree. No place to eat or sleep, snakes in the sagebrush creep. Nero, a saint would be, sharks compared to thee. That's what they call those people, sharks. Nearer to town each day, hiked all the way. Nearer that agency where I paid my fee. And when that shark I see, you'll bet the boots by tea that he nearer his God shall be. Leave that to me. Let's do those last 4 verses, last 4 lines again. And when that shark I see, you'll bet your boots that he nearer his God shall be. Leave that to me. There you see the turn again, where you have the sense of humor, but where you take this tragic story and kind of flip it on its head. And the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World, they still exist. They were radical, even by today. I mean, you can read their stuff right now. I mean, they're still calling for the elimination of all wages. So I mean, they are, and they were organizing workers in the early 1900s at a massive rate, more than any other union, and they were an odd group because they were a bit. They kind of had a mixture of Marxism and anarchism in them. Very similar to Jack London, actually, if you read Jack London's writing, where strongly individualistic and socialistic at the same time. So kind of this contrarian thing. So, you know, they kind of be libertarian on one side and collectivist on the other side. And so a member of the IWW could also be a member of other unions, which normally isn't the case. That's poaching. But they didn't care. That didn't matter to them. But they would organize particularly migrant workers and immigrant workers. And they were not so effective in terms of bargaining, and that's probably because they weren't that interested in bargaining. They were interested in revolution. So the Lawrence strike of textile workers, women textile workers, they were successful, but they didn't really go places because they kept on trying to agitate on the floor and stuff. And it's hard to maintain that revolutionary fervor for a long time. People want to get on with their lives. But at one point, there was over 150,000 IWW workers in the States. They were a big thing, and they were, as Jack London would call them, the Iron Heel was not very happy about it. And they were quite wide-ranging. They were actually involved. I just found out about this. They took over Baja Peninsula, they were going to make it a workers' commonwealth until the Mexican army came in. But they did try to take it over. They were critical to the free speech movement. And this is what ties them to the earlier martyrs too. So I mean, a lot of the freedom of speech that we have come from in England in the late 1600s, when the Nonconformity Act came in, and preachers had to be licensed or they were arrested. And people like John Bunyan would preach and get thrown into prison. And then he'd get out, and then he would preach and get thrown into prison. So a lot of our, this is the birth of many of our rights that we take for granted. Same thing in the early 1900s, up in Spokane, Washington. Some of you have been to Spokane. Was a hotbed. San Diego was another hotbed of this movement, where Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, we'll sing a song about her a little later, but she stood up and defied the law and spoke what she wanted to, and then was promptly arrested. And then another person got up in the soapbox, literally a soapbox, and they would arrest them, and they just went in a line, and they kept on doing this until they filled up the prisons. That's on a good day. On a bad day, they would round up all the people, they'd throw them in a boxcar and beat them senseless in the middle of nowhere. And from not labor-friendly newspapers, there are images of these people beaten and people questioning at the time, like, these people are citizens, what is going on here? So I mean, there were people who were questioning some of these practices, but they were going on. In San Diego, during the free speech, there was a free speech rally, 500 people in a square, and the factory hired gunmen came out and started shooting at people. And the only people arrested were the industrial workers of the world. Members, 50 people were arrested that day during the fracas, and they were only wobblies. So I mean that it was a wild time, and people did feel that they were on the cusp of revolution. And so of course, when there's people feel that, then of course the opposition to that is going to be tenfold. Not dissimilar to certain things, again, going on in our planet. Let's do one more song, and then we'll do the Candles of Concern and Celebration. This is Joe Hill's most famous song, Preacher and the Slave. Now, the Wobblies would often talk about anybody working for a wage was a slave. So that's so would you have freedom from wage slavery? So I mean that So that's where the slave and the opposition to religion, which talks about everything will work out when you die. So it's okay. And this is where the phrase pie in the sky comes from this very song. Joe Hill made it. And, well, I'll tell you as we're singing where you can come in for an extra part. Long-haired preachers come out every night. This is to the sweet by and by. If you know that song, that old hymn. Long-haired preachers come out every night. Try to tell you what's wrong and what's right. But when asked how about something to eat, they will answer in voices so sweet. Now this is your part. You will eat, by and by, in that glorious land above the sky, way up high. You have a different part. Way up high. Work and pray, live on hay. You'll get pie in the sky when you die. Now you scream, that's a lie! Okay? Oh, the Starvation Army, they play, and they clap and they sing and they pray, till they get all your coin on the drum. Then they'll tell you when you're on the bum. You will eat by and by, in that glorious land above the sky, way up high. Work and pray, live on hay. You'll get pie in the sky when you die. Holy rollers and jumpers come out, and they holler, they jump and they shout. Give your money to Jesus, they say. He will cure all diseases today. You will eat by and by, in that glorious land above the sky. Work and pray, live on hay. You'll get pie in the sky when you die. I apologize for this one because it's a bit, I try to use inclusive language, but I couldn't change this one here. If you fight hard for children and wife, try to get something good in this life. You're a sinner and bad man, they tell. When you die, you will sure go to hell. You will eat by and by, in that glorious land above the sky. Work and pray, live on hay. You'll get pie in the sky when you die. Working folks of all countries unite. Side by side we for freedom will fight. When the world and its wealth we have gained, to the grafters we'll sing this refrain. Now this changes. This last refrain is completely different. So you have to watch. You have to read. You will eat by and by. No, that's the wrong verse. There we go. You will eat by and by, when you've learned how to cook and how to fry. Chop some wood, it will do you good, and you'll eat in the sweet by and by. That's no lie. So we change everything at the very end. Okay. Now for everybody's favorite part, the candles of concern and celebration. And Lee's going to help us.
So anyone who wants to come forward to light a candle for concern or celebration, please do so now. Line at the front. Okay, any other candles of concern or celebration? No? Okay. I like this last candle for any concerns or celebrations that are in our hearts and in our minds.
May the light, these candles inspire us to use our power to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to serve the spirit of truth in loving affection and trusting hope. Time for some Canadian content. Yes, Joe Hill came up to Canada at one point. So a lot of his time, we're not quite sure where he was because they were migrants. They would catch these boxcars all over the place. But we do know certain periods of time when he was in San Diego for the free speech, up in Spokane during the free speech. And when he was in Spokane, he also went up to Canada where there was a strike of rail workers. I think it was the BC Rail when they were building that, which is mostly bike trails now, I think. This is to a popular tune called Where the Shannon River Flows. Fellow workers, pay attention to what I'm going to mention. It is the fixed intention of the workers of the world. We hope you'll all be ready, true heart and brave and steady, to gather round our standard when the red flag is unfurled. Where the Fraser River flows, each fellow worker knows they have bullied and oppressed us, but still our union grows. And we're going to find a way, boys, shorter hours and higher pay, boys. We're going to win the day, boys, where the Fraser River flows. Don't you know the song Where the Shannon River Flows? I mean, it was the Taylor Swift of the day. Okay. Oh, these gunny sack contractors, they've all been dirty actors. They're not our benefactors, each fellow worker knows. So we've got to stick together in fine or dirty weather. We will show them no white feather where the Fraser River flows. Where the Fraser River flows, each fellow worker knows they have bullied and oppressed us, but still our union grows. And we're going to find a way, boys, for shorter hours and higher pay, boys. We're going to win the day, boys, where the Fraser River flows. Now the boss, the law is stretching, bulls and pimps he's fetching. They are a fine collection, as Jesus only knows. But why their mothers reared them, or why the devil spared them, are questions we can't answer where the Fraser River flows. Where the Fraser River flows, each fellow worker knows they have bullied and oppressed us, but still our union grows. And we're going to find a way, boys, for shorter hours and higher pay, boys. We're going to win the day, boys. The Fraser River flows. There's a Edith Folk, Canadian songbook collection, or she collected a lot of Canadian songs, and I was an undergrad and I was flipping through this collection of Canadian songs, and at the very end there was this song, and it said this was a song by Joe Hill, and I went, oh, another Joe Hill song. So that's where I learned it. I mentioned a famous woman named Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, and she visited Joe Hill while he was in prison waiting for his execution, and she did lobby heavily for a stay of execution. And I should mention that Woodrow Wilson lobbied, the president at the time, for the state of Utah to stay the execution. And this might sound somewhat familiar. People of Utah were outraged at the overreach of the federal government into their affairs. And they supported Governor, even if they weren't for the execution of Joe Hill, they supported Governor Spry in resisting this interference from the president. Joe Hill wrote this song, and it's called Rebel Girl, and it was sung at his funeral. And more on the funeral later. There were two songs in particular that were sung at his funeral. But this one he wrote for Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, and probably more sexist than it needs to be at this day and age, but nonetheless, there are women of many descriptions in this queer world, as everyone knows. Some are living in beautiful mansions and are wearing the finest of clothes. There are blue-blooded queens and princesses who have charms made of diamonds and pearl. But the only and thoroughbred lady is the rebel girl. Now you're all going to sing this refrain. You're going to get it, okay? That's the rebel girl, that's the rebel girl. And I missed that line, sorry. That's the rebel girl, that's the rebel girl. To the working class, she's a precious pearl. Isn't that a great line? She brings courage, pride, and joy to the fighting rebel boy. Oh, we don't have the refrain here. We need the refrain. We've had girls before, but we need some more. This is the best line. In the industrial workers of the world. Imagine putting that in a song. For it's great to fight for freedom with a rebel girl. So we do that refrain. So there's one line missing. That's the rebel girl, that's the rebel girl. That's the rebel girl, that's the rebel girl. To the working class, she's a precious pearl. She brings courage, pride, and joy to the fighting rebel boy. We've had girls before, but we need some more in the industrial workers of the world. For it's great to fight for freedom with a rebel girl. Well, her hands may be hardened by labor, and her dress may not be very fine, but a heart in her bosom is beating that is true to her class and her kind. And the grafters in terror are trembling when her spite and defiance she'll hurl. For the only and thoroughbred lady is the rebel girl. That's the rebel girl, that's the rebel girl. To the working class, she's a precious pearl. She brings courage, pride, and joy to the fighting rebel boy. We've had girls before, but we need some more in the industrial workers of the world. For it's great to fight for freedom with a rebel girl. Okay, this one you'll get. This one's really easy. We will sing one song. We will sing one song of the meek and humble slave, horny-handed son of the toil. His toiling hard from the cradle to the grave, but his master reaps the profits of his toil. Now, could you go to the chorus? Organize, all toilers, organize your might. Then we'll sing one song of the workers' commonwealth, full of beauty, full of love and health. That's not too hard, is it? Then we'll sing one song of the poor and ragged tramp. He carries his back upon his back. Too old to work, he's not wanted round the camp, so he wanders without aim along the track. Organize, all toilers, come organize your might. Then we'll sing one song of the workers' commonwealth, full of beauty, full of love and health. We will sing one song of the children in the mills. They're taken from playground and schools. in tender years, made to go the pace that kills in the sweatshops and the looms and spools. Now, we should talk about this, actually. Mother Jones, the great labor leader, she was fighting to reduce child labor to 60 hours a week. Organize, oh toilers, organize your might. Then we'll sing one song of the workers' commonwealth, full of beauty, full of love and health. Then we'll sing one song of the one big union grand, the hope of the toiler and the slave. It's coming fast, it is sweeping sea and land, to the terror of the grafter and the knave. To organize, oh toilers, come organize your might. Then we'll sing one song of the workers' commonwealth, full of beauty, full of love and health. And this song, okay, I will tell. We're running out of time here. The night before Joe Hill was executed, he wrote his last and final will, and it was a poem. And he also made one request to, I think it was Big Bill Haywood. He said, please don't let my body be left in Utah. And so they cremated Joe Hill's remains, and they put it in envelopes and mailed it to every state with the exception of Utah, and also to other places around the world. And on May 1st, so May Day of 2016, so he was executed in 1915, and 1916 on May Day, they opened up the ashes and threw them to the wind. And this is his will. My will is easy to decide, for I have nothing to divide. My kin don't need to fuss and moan, moss does not cling to a rolling stone. Ah, if I could choose, my body it to ashes would reduce, and let the merry breezes blow my dust to where some flower grows. Perhaps that fading flower then will bloom to life, will come to life and bloom again. This is my last and final will. Good luck to you all, Joe Hill. And this is a song that was sung at his funeral. It's hard. I've actually got music that I have to put out, and it's kind of like a Beach Boys song, in that it has two songs. The refrain is completely different, so it's hard. The first part is not hard. Workers of the world awaken. So this part is easy. Workers of the world awaken, break your chains, demand your rights. All the wealth you make is taken by exploiting parasites. Shall you kneel in deep submission from your cradles to your graves? Is the height of your ambition to be good and willing slaves? So you got that? That's not too hard, is it? Now this is the hard part. Arise, ye prisoners of starvation, fight for your own emancipation. Arise, ye slaves of every nation, in one union grand. Our little ones for bread are crying, and millions are from hunger dying. The end the means is justifying, 'tis the final stand. So it's very apocalyptic. Okay, so let's start with the first verse again. Workers of the world awaken, break chains, demand your rights. All the wealth you make is taken by exploiting parasites. Shall you kneel in deep submission from your cradles to your graves? Is the height of your ambition to be good and willing slaves? Arise, ye prisoners of starvation, fight for your own emancipation. Arise, ye slaves from every nation, in one union grand. Our little ones for bread are crying, and millions are from hunger dying. The end the means is justifying, 'tis the final stand. Worker, just a minute. Join the workers, take a notion. They can stop all speeding trains. Every ship upon the ocean they can tie with mighty chains. Every wheel in the creation, every mine and every mill, fleets of armies of all nations, at their command stand still. Arise, ye prisoners of starvation, fight for your own emancipation. Arise, ye slaves of every nation, in one union grand. Our little ones for bread are crying, and millions are from hunger dying. The end the means is justifying, 'tis the final stand. Join the workers, fellow workers, men and women side by side. We will crush the greedy shirkers like a sweeping, surging tide. For the united we are standing, but divided we will fall. Let this be our understanding, all for one and one for all. Arise, ye prisoners of starvation, fight for your own emancipation. Arise, ye slaves from every nation, in one union grand. Our little ones for bread are crying, and millions are from hunger dying. And the means is justifying, 'tis the final stand. Workers of the world awaken, rise in all your splendid might. Take the wealth that you are making, it belongs to you by right. No one will be breadwinner crying, we'll have wisdom, love, and health. When the grand red flag is flying in the workers' commonwealth. Arise, ye prisoners of starvation, fight for your own emancipation. Arise, ye slaves of every nation, in one union grand. Our little ones for bread are crying, and millions are from hunger dying. The end, the means is justifying, is the final stand. That's a hard one. And has a weird chord that I've never even seen before. It kills me. But anyway, I thought I would do it because it was actually sung at Joe Hill's funeral. So obviously it was an important song for him. And it brings in lots of weird things in his lyrics. I'm going to wrap it up now. We'll do one more song. As I was reflecting on why these songs are important, and I want to come back to what you said, Edda. I don't want to be all dark. That there's lots of things wrong, especially in this province. You see, some days I can barely read the news. I get so angry, these songs remind me that things have been dark. Things are often dark, and that people find the light, and they find humor, and they organize, and they work together. And, certainly we're not perfect, but we're not there. Things have changed. Yes, there are places in the world where speaking my mind could get me in prison and dead, or being of a certain orientation can get you dead in certain places, but in other places it's okay now. For those of you who are as old as I am, remember the change of attitudes that we've seen in our lifetime. Particularly towards the LGBTQ. It's remarkable. So, this too shall pass. Things do change, and there's always hope. And especially when we remember that there is power in a band of working folks. That's the last song we're going to sing. Want to figure out where I'm singing this here. You have freedom from wage slavery. Join in the grand industrial band. You from misery and hunger be free. Come do your share, lend a hand. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. Now you should get that. Would you have mansions of gold in the sky and live in a shack way in the back? Would you have wings up in heaven to fly and starve here with rags on your back? There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. I can't hear you. You gotta sing louder. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. If you've had enough of the blood of the Lamb, then join in the grand industrial band. If for a change you would have eggs and ham, then come do your share, lend a hand. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. If you like sluggers to beat off your head, then don't organize, all unions despise. If you want nothing before you are dead, shake hands with your boss and look wise. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's a power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. Come all ye workers from every land, join the grand industrial band. Then we our share of this earth shall demand. Come on, do your share, lend a hand. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's a power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. Happy Labor Day. You can go back to talking.